Yeah, so we are going to continue from where we stopped. In our last class, we talked about API call. Um, what is API? What are the stuff that you need to do in order for you to communicate with external services? And at the same time, we talked about API in general, and we talked about the fetch API, which allows you to communicate uh, with different services. You have your front end application and you want to connect to the back end to get the data. We can use the fetch API to connect with that back end services. So today we are going to put this in practice by using this JSON placeholder um, free API. So this is an API that you can use to get something like the list of users, or you want to get list of comments based on a post, or you want to get posts based on a user, just like the way you see it online, that you log into some site and you see the list of all the posts and so forth like that. So we're going to use this simple API to learn about how we can integrate API in React there. So we have this endpoint that we can call, as you can see here. This is they are using fetch API 2 for the sample, and as you can see, the address along with the paths that is going to give us a specific data that we are looking for. So passing one here means you want to get a to do of this specific ID. But if this one is not there, it's just to do's alone, it's going to return all the to do that they have there in their system. For example, here, look at it. I have this endpoint that I'm calling already from the browser directly. So if this thing is the network, let me, okay, and as you can see, this one, and this is the data you are going to get back for the comment. So once you just go to slash comment, you see that it's going to return all the data back for you depending on whatever that uh, API is giving back to you. Again, so they have the slash post. This one too is going to return some domain post like that. It's not that it's returning correct data, it's just returning some domain data. But this domain data that we have here, we want to be able to communicate with this server, get the data, and we display it on the screen to the user. And I want us to do something like this. Not that it's going to have this full WhatsApp stuff. We're not going to be having all this send message, all this. We just want to use this kind of a layout where we're going to be having something like this by this side, which is going to have the list of all the users. So when you click on a particular user, then it's going to go to a page, but that page is just going to appear by this side, and it will list all the posts that is coming from that particular user. And once you click on a particular post too, then it will now show the post along with the comment and some other information about that particular post. As you can see for the post here on the screen, we have the user ID, the person that actually created the post, the ID of the post itself. We're going to use all this thing later on. Then we have the title of the post, which is something we're going to show at the top, and the actual data that we want to display. But apart from this, what else do you need to do? We need to display the comment for this particular post. So how do you get a comment for a particular post? They have everything on their site, and the guide that we need to follow are here, the deal like that. So that's how it's always going to be. Whatever backend services you want to connect to, you're going to have a documentation on how to communicate with that backend. And what are you going to use? We need the fetch API for now, but later on we're going to see how we can do it in a more efficient way. But for now, we're going to start with the basic by using the fetch API, and we communicate with the server. And at the same time, you know that when you are communicating with the server, it's not something that is going to come instantly. It might take time before you get the data back. So we need to kind of put in some kind of a mechanism of displaying a loader to the user, because when you go to some site and you are trying to get some resources, you see that they show kind of a loader for you, or they use something known as skeleton. So when you're talking about skeleton like this, so we use this one now to kind of show the brief of the way the UI is going to look like, but it's going to be like this kind of a pause animation going on there, like that. So we normally use this stuff on the page to kind of display how the data is going to be arranged on the page. But at that moment, there is no data at all. But we just want to give you a preview to what is going on. This thing is not showing what I want. So it should be a UI sample like this. But we are going to see it later on. We're going to implement something like that. So let me go to the image so that you can see how it used to look like. What's wrong with the network? All right, I'm waiting for it. So this is what we call skeleton here. So we have loader. Loader is something like you can see like the circle or any form of stuff. But here, this is what we call skeleton, which is this is it here. So this is what we call skeleton loader. The data, this is the form. As you can see, the way it's arranged, it looks like the way the data is going to come outside. And Facebook used to use this in a lot, or every like all these modern sites use skeleton these days in place of using the circular loading or any other form. But you can use any one of them, as you can see here too. So this thing is showing that something is going to come in later on, and this is like the shape is going to come in. So you know that, oh, the data that is coming back, something is going to be like this, then this one will be there, another thing is going to follow. But what is there, I don't know, but something is going to come later on. And anything like this circle like this, normally like image, it used to represent image, while all this strip one used to represent text. So while the big one here means it's going to be a larger text, while all the tiny one means it's going to be a smaller text. But it's just a way of showing user that something is still loading or something is coming later on, but it is the shape that the data is going to come back, which is like what is showing here. So something will be displayed here, but this is the shape. So this big stuff can be image, while all this one is going to be the text that is going to be replaced later on when the data is back. Because data doesn't come instantly. It all depends on the device that the user is using and the network speed and the way the server is handling the request will determine the time it's going to take to get it back. And don't forget, the fetch that we're going to be using is a promise. So which means we need to wait for it. And during that process of waiting for fetch to get the data for us, we can now display a loader or the skeleton that I talked about there. And what we want to do is that we're going to have our page. In our page by the left, we're going to load all the users. So where is the user coming from? So this is the endpoint that we need to call to get the list of users. And as you can see, for each user, you can see they have ID, name, username, email. So we're just going to pick some details here and display it by this side. So for example, we can put their full name at the top, and this one too, we are going to generate it, which is just their first name and the first letter of their first name and the last name is just what is there. So we are going to do something like that. And as you can see too, we don't have any image, so we're going to generate this random color for each one of the user there, like that. And apart from that, we're going to display their email under this place. What do we need? We need any other thing. So we need their full name, their email, and once we click on any one of them, then another stuff is going to appear by this side, which is going to be the list of the posts for that particular user. So here it is going to be the list of all the posts for this user. And once you click on a particular post too, then it will now show the full details about the post and along with the comments for that particular post are there. That's just what we want to do so that we can see how to couple everything together. Then in the next class here or following class, we are going to be working on a more broad application, which is what I mentioned at the last class, which is the dictionary app, where we are going to work on a real design that is coming from Figma. We're going to go to the Figma, see all the design, pick all the element we need, design it, and connect that application to the backend or the services that is going to bring the definition of whatever the word that the user search on the page. But this one is just to reinforce what we talked about at the last class there, like that. So let's set up the project, because this one now, it's going to be new stuff, and I hope we're going to be able to finish this thing on time. If not, we're going to continue in the next class there. So what we need to do now is to set up our application. by using our npm to create bits at latest so that it can bring in the latest for us. So press enter. So this one should set up bit for us, and it should ask us which you library do we want to use or framework. So we're going to go with the React, and from there the next thing we're going to do is to install the React router DOM, because we need it in order for us to be able to, because what we want to do is that we want to manipulate the URL, and you know that when you are manipulating the URL, it's best to use React router DOM, because it's going to give us all the goodies that we need to deal with changing of pages, because the application you are building is just a single application, so it's not multi-page application. You're only going to have one HTML, but you want this thing to look like you have multiple pages, so we need the React router DOM to give us all the goodies that we normally have when you are dealing with multi pages, like you are creating different HTML file. And at the same time too, whatever stuff we want to do is still going to be the same interface, but we want to have a nested routing, just like what is here. So when you click on any particular stuff here, that's when it's going to open the one that follows it, which is the next line that is here. So if you click on this one will open up. Then if you click on something here too, this one will going to open up, and we are going to be changing the URL based on what you click here or what you click here. So if you click on this item here, it's going to go to /post, then it's to list out the post based on the user ID. User ID is going to be part of the URL. Then when you now click on a particular post here, then it will now go to slash the single post that we want, and from there too, it will give us the details that it needs to come outside for that particular page there. So now, yes, so this thing is asking us the project, since I want to use the same folder, so I'm going to use the dots so that I can put everything in the current folder. So what we need is React, and we need normal JavaScript there, and as you can see, we have our project. So the next thing we need to do is to run npmi to install the necessary stuff that we have under our package.json. So npmi, and once this one is done installing, then we can now add our React router DOM into the system. And I just noticed that React router DOM has changed the way they used to do their stuff, because now they are now on this in version 7.1.5, but we don't want that changes in this our application, so we are going to be going with version 6.29.0, because the way they are doing things in the new version 7 now, it's quite different from the way they are doing in version 6. I've already explained what this versioning stuff is doing. Now it will do anytime the first number change, it means the way you used to do things before is quite different. So 6 is what we had before, now it has changed to 7, so which means the way you used to do things before in 6, it's now different. And I've checked, we don't want that, we don't want to add extra stuff, so we are going to use what we know already, which is coming from this version 6.29 there. And once this thing is done, I'm going to add the React router DOM to the list of stuff that we need to install. So I'm waiting for it. All right, so it's done. The setup is done. So let me clear the console and install the React router DOM. So npmi React router DOM, but I told you I don't want to install their latest version, because that one, the way it is quite different from what we are used to. So I'm going to specify the version that I want. So when you are installing any library and you do not mention any version, it's going to install the latest one from the npm. But if you need a specific version from there, then you can use this @ symbol, then followed by the version that you want to install. I can see the last version based on the one we need is this 6.29.0. So here now we can mention 6.29 then 0.0. If you don't put the version, it's going to install the latest, but the latest that they have is quite different, which is the latest is 7.1.5, which is different from the way this thing used to work before. So I don't want to waste time on that one, because you have to set it up on its own separately. You don't even need to use the bits directly yourself. You copy their command and it's going to set up the bits and the routing. But that routing there is quite complex than what we are used to. So I don't want to bother you with that. But it's something you have to eventually know about later on there like that. But for now, we're going to use this version 6.29.0, because the previous one that we used to is version 6, but I think it's around 6.14 or so that we used last, or 20 something. But yeah, we're going to use 6.29.0. And once this thing is done installing, we should have it under this our this here. So currently we have only React and React done, but we need to add this router into it. And once that one too is done, we need to set up Tailwind, because that's what we're going to use for styling. So we're going to be using Tailwind for styling, and Tailwind too has changed. The Tailwind we used last time was around 3.4 point something. Yeah, I think it's 3 point something. But now Tailwind 2 is version 4 now. So let me bring this in to this screen, and as you can see, Tailwind 2 has changed to from version 3 to 4. So which means the way you used to do, like, there's some little changes that we now have now. Now when you are dealing with Tailwind, we have a configure file, but now it's different. The way you set it up is quite different from the way you have it with version 3. If you still want to use that one too, you just need to switch. Once you switch, it's going to bring it out for you there like that. So let me move this thing back. Meet, what's going on with Meet? Yeah, so yeah, thank God. The thing is done installing. We've added our React router done. So the next thing we need to add is a Tailwind. So just like what I mentioned before, Tailwind 2 now have version 4. Before, what we have is version 3 point something at the end, but now we now have version 4. So which means there is a little change in the way you work with Tailwind. Before, when you're working with Tailwind, we have the Tailwind config file and so forth like that. But the way you install it now is quite different when you're using Fit. So to install it, we have to run this npm install Tailwind along with these vits that we have here. Then from there, inside the vit config, we're going to import Tailwind. So we don't need to do external init for Tailwind. They now have the build tools for vit. So we just need to install it, the Tailwind itself, and the tooling that is going to work with the vit. Then from there, we include it in the setting. So what we just need to do is to copy this line, which is going to install the necessary package for Tailwind. Let me clear the terminal. And once these two packages are installed, then we update this our vit config so that it can know about Tailwind. So let me paste this. So why this one is going, so inside our index.css, the same thing what we normally do before is at the top to import 3 stuff by using an import Tailwind, utilities, and so forth like that. We don't need to do that again. The only thing we just need to do is import Tailwind alone. So we don't need to import more than Tailwind. Before, you need to import 3 stuff here, but the only thing we just need to import is this one. And under the vit config, then we're going to import the package that is being installed currently. So let me just copy it and put it inside the file. So paste. This thing is going to bring out error because this thing is not installed yet, but let me just copy it down. And after this, under the React, so we have the plugins. So we have React there. What we just need to do is to use comma here so that we can add other plugins. So we need to add this Tailwind plugin for it. And once this thing is done installing successfully, I think it's done loading for it not to show error. Still loading. So once this thing is done installing, then we can test it out by seeing whether the project has been set up with Tailwind or not. So I'm going to delete all this default stuff that is here. This CSS file, I don't need it, so I'm going to delete it. I don't need it, so delete, because we are going to be using Tailwind. Everything here too, we don't need it, so I will go back into this. Oh, I delete wrong file. Ctrl Z. So what I want to delete is the CSS file, not the the CSS file. Yeah. So delete all this one. Delete. I don't need the state. I don't need everything that is here. This is where we're going to set up our routing. So we don't need a lot of things that are here, but we just want to see whether the tailwind is set up correctly. So I will just put this in here. Let me disable this AI that it doesn't slow down my VS Code. All right. Welcome to user list and post list like this. So user list and post list. Then on top of this, we're going to apply some tailwind stuff. So text XL like this, 3XL, font bold, just for us to see whether tailwind is working or not. So what else do we have? So font bold, then text green 500, BG green 200 like this. So just apply some stuff. So save, and once this thing is done installing down here, we can run our server and we see whether the tailwind has been connected easily there. And any configuration you want to have with the tailwind, you can do it directly from the CSS file. It's not like the way we used to have it before, that you'll be working with a config file here for tailwind separate. No, you don't need to do that. Whatever setting you want to do, you're going to do it from this CSS file. Now they are using CSS file for configuration. And again, too, what you import is just one item. For now, since we are not doing too much, we are going to use their default setting or default colors and so forth like that. So we are not adding into our system. So let me wait for this thing, and once it's done, I'm going to resume back the recording. All right, so we have our setup done, and as you can see, tailwind setup. So let's set up our routing too. So inside this our app.gsx, we are going to set up our routing for the application. So what do we want to do here? We want to have 3 pages, but the first one we're going to have there is this side one here, which is going to load the user list. So once we click on a particular user, there's another one that is going to appear beside it, another list that is going to appear beside it, which is going to be the list of all the posts for the particular user you click on. So if you click on user 1, then it's going to show the post for user 1. If you click on user 2 or 3, it's going to show the post for user 3, and so forth like that. And once you click on a particular post too, then it's going to open the third section here, which is another page on its own too. So, and it's going to list out, or it's going to display the full details about the particular post that you click on. And under that post, we are going to list out the comments that is meant for that particular stuff. So by combining everything that we've learned together, and later on, we are now going to work on the dictionary app that I mentioned. But first, we need to put this in use first, the API call in use, by using this simple application. So let's set up our routing. So if you look at it here, we have something like this home page here. So this first one is going to have like the home page, and that's where we're going to have the list of the user, because the first time you come to the site, we're going to load the list, and this list, at that time you don't have any user selected, so which means all these two sites are not going to have anything in them. So the time you are going to have data here is when you click on a particular user. So it's going to route you to a page, but that page too is part of the layout that we have. So it's not going to display the post for that particular user that we click on. And once we click on a particular post here too, we are now going to see the full post details, like the title at the top, the body of the post, and at the same time we are going to have the comment list on the page there like that. So that's how this application is going to be. Yeah, so as I was saying there, we're going to set up our routing. Let me remove this thing and set up the routing quickly. So what do we need to do? We need to import some of the stuff that we need. So import them from React router DOM like this. So the first thing we need is create browser router. So this is what we're going to use to create our routing. Then the next thing we need is a router provider, which is going to provide the routing for our application. And how is this routing going to look like? So we have this router provider. So yeah, so these are what we need. So at the top here, I'm going to have const router is going to be this create browser router. So which is going to create our routing for us like that. And from here, we just need to use our router provider. So provider. So, and here we just need to provide our route. I don't need this router. So we just need to provide our router to be router like this. So how is our route going to look like? So first, we're going to have this slash, so which is going to be our home page. So which is the normal URL that we have. But anytime you click on a particular user, so it's going to go to this user, then followed by the ID of the user. So it's going to follow by the user ID, then followed by post. So when you click on a particular user from the list, so this is our list here. So when you click on a particular user from the list, then it's going to take us to this URL, which is user slash then the ID of the user, because we need this ID to be able to fetch the post that is meant for this particular user. So whatever user you click on, we're going to extract out the ID, we send it to the URL, and once you get to that page, the page will fetch the post that is meant for this particular user. But what if you click on a particular post too? So we're going to have the URL in this way. So we're going to have the user like this. Then we're going to have, so it's still going to be the normal way that we have it. So user ID, then we're going to have the post, and we're going to have the post ID. So when you click on a particular post, this is what the URL is going to change to. When you click on a particular user, this is what the URL is going to change to. But the first time you get to the page, this is how our URL is going to be. Because this thing is very important, because that's what we need now to create the route that we need for our application. Without this understanding of the route, there is no way you know what is going on. And if you note, we've talked about how we can create a nested routing in our application there like that, where you can nest your elements, or where you can nest your pages inside a order. And I've talked about it, so I don't need to go over the stuff. We're just to start using the stuff. So what do we need? We need to create our routing to match this URL that we have down here. So under this place, I'm going to have the paths. So this is going to be the normal path that we are going to have there. So by default, which is going to be this slash, which is our normal home page. But under these paths, we want to display one layout element there, because we need a layout for this thing like that. And at the same time, we are going to be passing some stuff inside it like that. So here I'm going to have children for now. So the children that we want to have is going to be this. So when it is so here we're going to be having index to be true. So what do you want to display when you just go to normal slash? You are not going to anything like, because when you come to the slash, what do you want to show on the page? So we want to display something on the page. So you can use this index, or you can just pass the layout directly from here, and it's going to do the same thing for us. But for now, I'm just going to put, so it's going to be true. Then what is the element that we want to display? For now, I will just put some random HTML element so that we can see what is going on. So I will just use h1. this is a index page like this, or the home page, whatever you want to call it. So another one that we're going to have here is going to be this part. So what's the part? Don't forget, we want to have this one now, slash user, then slash user ID, and slash post. So that one is when you click on a particular user. So we need to create the routing for this second one. So what is going to be our part? The part is going to be slash user like this, and after the user we are going to have the ID, so user ID. And don't forget, anytime you have column, what does that mean? It means it's going to be a dynamic part. So after this user ID, we are going to have the post. So anytime you come to this URL like this, what do we want to display? We want to display something. So here I'm just going to have h1 like this, and it's going to be user post list like this. So this is what we want to show anytime we come to this URL. But don't forget, this thing will be changing based on the ID of the user. And lastly, we have this one here. So let me just copy it. I don't need to type it again. Then duplicate this one like this. So no. So duplicate this one downward. Then change what we have inside it to this. And this one now is going to be the user post user. So this is going to be user single, because here now we are on a particular single post details like this. So this is what we want to show. But all this thing right now are not going to show at all, because I want to have layouts later on of based on what I want to do. But again, too, the way I actually arrange it here, if you look at it, we have repetition here. So the same thing that we have here is still the same thing that we have in this place. So instead of us doing it like this, we can make it a nested one under this place. So I'm going to create children here too. For now, I'm just going to create the children for here and move this one under it, because they are technically the same thing. So what we just need to do right now is that to just have this one. So we don't need this one again, because the item that I have there before is still the same thing as what I have here, and I want to be able to split them into two based on what we want to display on the screen. So save this stuff, and now going back to the page, the stuff that we have on it should be removed now, and we should only see index page on the screen. Should only see index page. So let me open the terminal and reload our page, because things have changed. So let me reload the application, and we should only see our index page. So it's loading, and I saw the error here. So okay, I know what it's saying. So let me remove this one like that, because it's nested under the one that we have there like that. Yeah, so as you can see, we have index page. So when we are on the slash, which is whether you put slash or you don't put slash, is the same thing. Slash is the same thing as our index. So when we're on the index, this is what we want to see. But now what if you go to the slash user, then the ID of the user? So this part is dynamic. It can be anything. So here I'm just going to put 4 or 3 to just represent the ID of the user. Then after that, I'm going to have post. And once you press enter for this one, can you see we are going to have the user post? But this is not the way it's going to be. See that the other one has disappeared. The index has disappeared. I don't want the index to disappear. The index will still going to stay, because the way we want our application to be is that all of them they are placed side by side. So the list of the user will be by this side. Once you click, the other one will open by the other side, and once you click from this side too, it will open the post. So how do we do that? That's where the layout comes in. So we can't be using index, or we can't use our index through to do the same thing. We must create a layout so that whatever we see by the side, it will always be present, whether we move from one page to another. And the other one that we have here again is going to be slash, then the post ID that you want to get. So maybe the post ID is this particular one like that. Do I have anything in front of it? I think that's all. So just press enter, and as you can see, it's going to, no, it's not showing it. And why is it not showing the stuff? Is because I have element here, so it's still showing the same thing, so it will not pick this element. So we need to turn this one to layout, and we are going to use our outlet. So instead of us using this element here, what we need to use is going to be the element at this place, but it's going to be anything. What we just need to do is to call it the page layout. So what is this page layout? This is where we are going to do the layout for the entire application. And what is the layout we need to have? So this is what we want to have. So we want to have these three sections on the page. The first one here, so this page, let me draw this in again. This is going to be our page. Let me clear everything. So we have our page. This is our page. So inside the page, we want to have a layout. So that layout is going to be the one that covers everything. But from it, we want to have a section for displaying the list of the user. So from the layout, it's going to display the list of the user. But once you click on a particular user, it will take you to this URL. And once this URL is there, there's going to be one outlet inside it. So that outlet will cover up this entire remaining space. But this remaining space too, as you can see, its own too, it have this nested element. So that one too is going to split this content into two, where this red section here is for when you are under this part here, but where this last one too is not going to be when you have the ID for a particular post. All these things are going to be clear once you put the code in place. So what we need to do here is to have the page layout. Apart from this page layout, yeah, so under this place we are going to have the post layout too. So we are going to have the post layout, and from this side we are going to have this particular one, which is going to be this page. So I'm going to call this one the single post page, like this. So this one is what is going to represent a single post page. That single post page, that's where you're going to see the details about the post, like the title, the date it was created, if they are even given that, and again to the comment under that particular post. And for this one, I'm going to call it post page. Don't let me call it layout. Let me just call it post page, like this, or post. So let it have S like that. So it's going to be the post page. Then again too, this is going to be the app, like this. So app, or let me just call it home page, or should I use layout for it? It's still going to be the same thing, but I'm just going to call it this home page directly. So under the home page, we are going to be having outlets. Inside the outlet, it's going to hold this post and this single post. So let's create all these components because we don't have them right now. So I'm going to put them under the pages for now. So under the pages, we're going to have the home page.jsx like this. So RAFCE to generate the components for us. Control space bar. So where are you loading? Yeah, so this is our home page. So we're going to generate another one too, which is going to be this post page. And this is the one that is going to be holding the page and the single one. So this is going to be JSX like this. So RAFCE, 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 yes. So this is a post page. We're going to come back into it. And lastly, we're going to have this single post page like this .jsx. So RAFCE again, and these are the three pages that we need. These are the three pages that we need. So I want to call that thing layout before, but I changed it back to home page. You can call it any name, but we are dealing with simple applications, so let me just go with pages instead of layout. So inside this our app now, what we need to do is to import them. So we need to import, so the home page, we need to import our post page, and at the same time we need to import our single post page. So save everything, and going back to the page, we should have the components displaying out as our post page. So what we should be seeing on the screen now, it should be this items are here, no, we should be seeing what we have at the home page. So it's not going to show the post or this single one right now. So what we are going to be seeing is going to be home page. So let me reload because we changed some stuff. And once this thing reload and everything is okay, as you can see now, we have home page. But this is not what we want to show. So under this home page, we want to have the list of user. Then the remaining space that is left, we want to have it for the post and for the single post. Well, right now, let me go back to the home page. Yes, this is what we want. Nothing will be by the other side. But if you go to slash the users, the user 3 posts like this, we should see the one which is the post list by the side. But right now it's not showing it. Why is it not showing it? It's because under the home page, everything they are nested under home page. So in order for the home page to know or to display what is nested under it, don't forget what we need to do is to use outlet. So here I'm going to be having 2 sections inside this div. So I'll be having 2 sections. So I'm going to have this section. This is the section that we're going to have the list of the user, and the second section, so this is going to be list of users like this, while the second section is where we are going to have our outlet, and the outlet is going to display what we have there. So for example here, I'm going to call my outlet, which is something we've used before when we are talking about routing. So outlet, don't forget, outlet is what is going to represent whatever nesting that you have in your configuration from the router. So since all this one now, they are children of the home page, so whenever you use outlet, that's what the page you are currently on, that's what is going to replace this outlet with. Now once this thing is saved and on the page now, you see that we now have the 2 of them. We have the list of the user, as you can see now, we have the list of user and we have the post. But now if I leave this side and just go to the normal home page, the only thing we just see is list of user. But if you go to the other page, what we are going to show, going back again, user like this 3 and post, then it's going to bring out the list of user, and at the same time is having this post page. But again too, when we go to slash the ID of the post, we want to see the third one, which is a single page. But that one too is not showing right now. Why is it not showing? It's because that one is nested under this user post. So in order for us to see this single too, we need to use outlet under this post page. So in order for us to see that one too, we need to use outlet. So we're going to do the same thing here too. So we're going to have 2 sections. So the first one is going to be the post list. So this one too is going to be the post list because it's always going to be there. Post list like this. Then the second section is where the single post is now going to be displayed outside. So the single post will be displayed by the side, and in order for us to see this one too, we need to call its own outlet. Anytime you have a nested route, and you want to see it here, you have to use outlet. So if you look at it, we have this element which is this post, but we have nested one under it. So in order for us to see whatever that is nested under it inside this post page or inside this component somewhere, we need to use outlet. So in order for us to be able to even see this post page somewhere in the home page, we need to use outlet because it is nested under home page, and that's what we need to do so that we can see all these pages that we need. So let me remove this first line, we don't need it. So save like this, and going back to the page, as you can see now, the 3 of them are now coming out. So when you go to single post page, as you can see, it will show the 3 of them. But when you don't go to any page at all, it will only show the list of user, which is what we want to display the first time it loads. Because like WhatsApp, when you load it on system, if you not click on any user, there is no way to show a message for you. So you need to click on a particular user. But once you click on a particular user, then it's going to take us to the page, which is going to be this URL slash whatever the ID of the user followed by post. So once you get here like this, you see that it will display the user and at the same time their post list. So when you now click on a particular post list too, the URL will change and it will append the ID of that particular post to the URL. For example, 8. So now it will now show the 3 of them. But they are supposed to be side by side based on what we want to do. They are supposed to be side by side, not being placed on top of each other like this. So what do we need to do? The next thing is just the CSS, the styling. So in order for this thing to work, we need to apply our styling, and that's the reason why you see that I have this div at the top so that I can display it as flex. I don't care about the mobile right now, so we are not working for mobile. So it is going to be displayed as flex, and once this thing is saved, as you can see now, they are going to be side by side, but not the post that I want to do for first. I want to do it for the parent, which is the home page. So class name like this. So this one is going to be flex. What's wrong with my keyboard? Why did it change to UK? Let me change this thing back to US. Coming, switching keyboard back to US. All right, back to US. All right, so this one too is going to be flex. So let me apply BG red 500 so that you can see what is going on the page. So let me collapse the sidebar. Let me reduce this, and let me move this thing a little bit to this side. Bring this one out back like this. So once this thing is saved, we should have a background of red around everything, as you can see. Then inside this post too, let me just use BG blue 500 so that we can see what is going on. As you can see, list of users is taking its own part, then this section is taking its own part, but that's not what we want. We want this post and this list of posts to take the remaining space that is left. So we can apply our CSS again here. So class name, what we want here is going to be flex1. So whatever space that is left, those two are going to take the space there like that. And once this thing is saved and it gets to the browser, you see that the post is going to take the remaining space that is left once the user is done with his own space. But I don't want this one to just be anyhow. So I'm going to give this one to class name like this, class name. So this one is going to be flex1, which is always going to be increasing. So this one is going to be 3. So this one, which is this by the side, is always going to take 3 times because there is 2 things inside it. So once this one is saved, you see that the user will take 1, while this one will take 3 times. So when this thing is increased, it will always take 3 times whatever we give for the list of the user there. And going back to this list of user too, we need to do the same thing for these 2 sections. So I want this section, so this one is going to have a class name. So this one is going to be flex1, while the remaining space that is left too, this one is going to take 3 times whatever that one too is taking. So flex, so it's going to be 3 like this. So this space, this blue space, the single page will take 3, while this one for the post list will take this particular remaining space that is left, because they are not taking the space. So we need for them to take that space. Let me give you the class so that you can see that it's not taking the space or when it's taking the stuff. So class name, so BG orange 500 like this, or they don't have it should be amber. Let me use amber. So BG amber like this 500. Tailwind, what are you loading? So the amber or ember. So let me use purple. So save, and once the VS Code is done loading, everything should show on the screen. VS Code is still loading. What's going on VS Code? So as you can see now, we have it. So it's not taking the space that I want it to be. So I want this one to take 3 times whatever of the space that is left inside that blue area. So let me save the blue now. And once this one is saved, you see that the single post, we always have more space than the other one. So the list of users is taking 1/3 of the blue like that. While the blue is 3, then inside the blue, we have the post and we have the single one. And each one of them that is, they are not going to show unless you're on a particular route. So if I remove that 8, you see that we are not going to be seeing anything again for that particular single post because you've not selected any post. The same thing too, when you don't have any user selected, when you are just on the normal home page, the only thing you just have is a list of these users. But I don't want this thing to keep going anyhow like this. I don't want the thing to keep going anyhow like this, but we're going to come back to it later on there like that, because I want this thing to actually have a minimum width of something. But right now, it's not showing anything because nothing is inside it currently like that. So I will just leave it like that for now. So what do we need to do? What we just need to do now is to make sure that everything covers the page. So here we're going to have a component which is going to give us the post. So here, let me create the component, and the job of this component is to fetch the list of the user. This is not where it's supposed to be. So it's the home page that I want to talk about. So this list of user is going to be a component, and that's where we're going to communicate with the API to fetch the list of the user, and it's going to list them out there. But again too, if you look at this thing, it did not really fill the entire page. If you want it to fill the entire page, you can actually do it, but for now I don't care about that. So what we just need to do here at the top, so before it starts displaying the stuff, so let me just move this one down for now. So we are going to have the header. So inside this place we are going to have the header. So inside it we're going to have h1, and that's where we're going to have the list of this thing. Then from there we are going to create a component which is going to be users list. So this is going to be a component there. And where are we creating this component? So we enter this component file, just paste, then JSX like this, and this is where we're going to make API call. This is where we're going to list all the user out there like that. So save like this. So remove this, going back to our page. So import the component like this and save all the code so that we can see everything on the screen. So save the code, and once the code is saved, we should have this h1. As you can see, we now have the users list like this. But I don't want this thing to keep getting wide like this. So this particular section, I don't want it to keep getting wide at all. So I want to give it a max width of maybe around that 280 pixels. So I don't want it to keep getting wider anyhow, like, because when we don't have anything by the right hand side, it's just, taking the entire space that we have there like that. So max width, what's wrong with Tailwind? Tailwind is not generating my class. Has this thing changed? We are using Tailwind 4, so why is it not generating my class? So let me check. It's not generating. Okay, this thing is there. Okay, it's doing it. Let me see. Yeah, it's actually doing it. So max width is 280, but the remaining space that is left, I want to display something there when we are not in a particular route. So let me just remove this BG red like this. So save, remove that, and from this section, that's where I want to have the BG. So the BG is going to be this BG amber. I don't know which background we want to use, but let me use slates 300 like this. So this is what's wrong with Tailwind. My Tailwind is not showing again. So it's supposed to be showing all the classes that I'm applying right now, but it's not showing them. We'll check that one out later. So we have this, so BG slate 300. We have the max width 80. As you can see, it will not go past whatever width that I specify like that. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that all these things cover up the entire screen height. So in order for us to make sure that it cover up the entire screen height, we need to do some CSS first from this page, because if you notice in our this thing, can you see we have this div and we have the body. Look at where they are stopping, so they are not getting down on the page. So what we can just do here is to select that body, then at the same time select the root. What's wrong with this my keyboard today that is changing to? So we need to select the root, then from there we need to apply the Tailwind. So H full, W full like this. So which means it will always take the let me use let's use main H screen like this. So which means the minimum height of this stuff is going to be the screen. So going back to the page, as you can see now, the body now cover up okay, the body has covered up the entire stuff, but the root, selecting the root, yeah, so the root too is there now. So the root is here, the body too is there. So what we just need to do is to talk to this div to cover up its entire height. So going back to the home page, you can just say h full like this, which is going to make the height of the page, or to make it to cover up the height, and I can say it's not. So what I can just do, yes, to just do h screen. So let's go past the screen, and as you can see, it's going to cover up the page. The same thing too when you go to the other pages. For example, when we go to the user post like this, it's going to make sure that they cover up the screen, but it not. So I will talk to that one too, to have h of screen. But for now, this is what I'm just going to have there. So this is going to be this. Then we have this post displaying at this place like that. I will get into that one too later. But what we need to do right now, because we can't complete this thing, the only thing we are just going to do is to fetch the list of the user. So we need to fetch the list of the user. But before we start fetching the list of the user, we need to apply some CSS on this place here, because everything is just jam-packed together. So I want to have P5 because I want to have padding around everything. I don't want it to connect to the edge like this. As you can see, we have this, and I think this 5 is really much. Let me use 4, which is 1 rem. So it's going to give us padding of 1 rem. So this is going to be flex. It's going to be column because I want to stack it on top of each other. The gap is going to be 4, which is 1 rem. So the list of user and the component, they are going to be spaced by this stuff. So inside the header or this one, so class name, I want to have font. So font is going to be bold because I want that text at the top to be bold, like that. So the list of users that we put here, yes, is going to be bold like this. And under this list of users, this is where we're now going to make our API call to bring the list. Look at the what we want to have there. So for each user that we're going to be fetching from the API, we want it to display something like this for us. And when do you want to make this API call? When you get to the page for the first time. So when this page loads, or when the application loads for the first time, that's when we want to make our API call. So how do we do this in? How do we make API call? When our page loads. That's where our effect comes in. So we can use our use effect, because this use effect allows us to run a code when you get to the page for the first time, or when you are leaving the page, or when a particular props change. So we've talked about all these things. So we can use this use effect here now to make API call the first time that this component is loading. So when is it going to do it? Because we have empty array here. So it means this thing will only run the first time that the component loads. For example here, let me just do console log testing like this. So saving the code like this, the only time you are going to see this console log is when this component render for the first time. Anytime there is a changes later on to the component, you are not going to see this testing again. The only time you see it is when it loads for the first time. So if I make any changes to this component later on, maybe after the list is back and is something changed in that component, is not going to call this use effect again. If you want it to call every time your component re-render there, or when the component render there, you can remove this empty stuff, which is bad, because we only want this thing to fetch the list of user the first time the page load. So how do we fetch the list of the user? So we need to have the states that holds the user list. So we are going to have the users, then set users. By default, this thing is going to be array, empty array. So this is going to be use states. So we want to have a state that is going to hold all the users that we want to display in our system. So it's going to be empty array. Again, later on, we need to know whether the user is loading or not. So we need to get the state of loading. I told you that we're going to be using skeleton loader later on. So this is what this thing is there for. By default, it's going to be false because I don't need it right now. And at the same time, maybe there is any error, you might want to track that one too. So error, then set error, because there is no way this thing will only work every time. What if the user network is not going, or something wrong with their network, or something shall go on with it? So it can happen. So I'm just going to set the error as empty data like this. So what do we want to do when this our effects gets run for the first time? We want to call our API. Which API do we want to call? We want to connect to this API here to fetch the list of all the user. And what are the list of user that we want to get back? We want to get this list here. So how do we connect to it? We just need to connect by using our fetch API. So we need to use the fetch API. So here, what we need to do, I'm going to create a function, which is what is going to call the API. So function fetch users like this. And this thing is going to be async because we want to use async and await. I told you that we're going to be using this async and await later on like that, because this thing is going to make it easier for us to work with API easily there. So why do we need this async here? Because I want to use something known as await, and this is what we can use instead of fetch, and you'll be using then. Because if you look at it right now, if you go back to the API that we want to call, you see that when you want to use it, you have to call this then to receive the response, then you call then again to now receive the JSON data. But instead of using this then, we can streamline our code by using async and await, because with that one, JavaScript can wait for that particular line to complete its task. And when that line is done with the task, then it will be able to move to the next line. Don't forget, if you just call fetch directly, fetch doesn't wait for you to get the response back. It will just continue. JavaScript will just continue whatever you are doing. So we want JavaScript to be able to wait for whatever we are doing on a particular line. For example, here we want to get back the response from the API. But if you just do it like this and say fetch and you pass it like this, it will never give you back the response. What you get back is just a promise. So in order for us to wait for the fetch, to complete the task, then we need to use this await. But in order for you to use this await too, your function that you want to use must be async. Can you see here? You cannot use await. So before you can use await, your function must be async, so that JavaScript will know that, okay, this thing can take time to process its action. So here now, the fetch will go to this endpoint, fetch our user. So we are going to receive the response. So the next thing we need to do is to get the actual data. Again too, we need to use our await, which is going to be this response.json. But don't forget, this thing might not come back successfully. I'm just doing the simple stuff. We'll come back to it in the next class to make it manageable there, because you need to handle the error and all that thing there. For example, here we can do something like this by saying if response, which is something we used last time. So response.ok, you know that your API was called successfully. But if not, then you know that something is wrong with the API call. So we know that when the response is okay, then we can fetch our JSON. And after fetching our JSON, what do we need to do? We can just set our user, which is going to be whatever data that we get back. But right now, we've not really called our API. So in order for this thing to be called, we need to run this fetch users here. So fetch user is a function we want to call. And why do we need to do this thing again here? It's because we want to be able to use async. You can't just put async here. It's bad. You can't put async in the function that you pass to the use effect, the callback. So you should create a separate one inside use effect with this async. Then you'll be able to use this async and await. But this thing can cause problem, which is what we are going to solve later on. But for now, we don't care about that. Again, we need to set our loading. So when the API is being called, we want to set loading to be true. And when the API is done, when everything is done, whether there is error or no error, you still want to stop it. So we are going to set it to false like this. So what do we want to do? So on this page, let me just show it to you so that you see that this thing is working. So in front of it, we want to show the value of loading. At the same time too, we want to show the value of users. So we want to show the value of users like this. So what else do we want to show? Okay, we've not set the error for now. So right now, just save and let us go back to our page. You see that, can you see? We get this error, not valid React children, because I'm passing, oh, what did we have? So that user is not coming back the way it's supposed to be. So what I can just do here is to convert everything to JSON. So the user that is coming back, or let me remove the user for now. Let me remove the user for now. So let me console log it out so that we can see what is coming back. So console log data like this, and save the page again. Going back to the page, reload, and you are going to see briefly, depending on the network, you see that the loading will show, and from there it will come back with the data. But I'm not saying loading. Yeah, so the data is back. So the data is now back. So as you can see, we have array of all these objects. Under it, we have the address, the company, the email, the name. The only thing we need, the two things we need here is the name, the um the name, the email, and at the same time the ID. This is what we're going to use later on to get a post for that particular user. But right now, nothing is showing. So how do we display the stuff? So instead of doing this one here, so if it is loading, I want to do something. If it is not, I want to do something else. So this is what I want to do here for now. So is it loading? So when it is loading, just display this p tag loading like this. But when it is not loading, then do something else. So I'm going to add this p tag like this. But what if it's not loading? So what if we want to do? What we will just want to do is that the users then map, because we know that it is going to be array like that. So what did I want to return? I just want to quickly return a p tag to here, which is going to show the name of the user. So it's going to show the name. So it's going to be p. What's wrong? It's going to be p like this. So what do we need? We need the user. What is here? What did they call it? Okay, it's called name. So for the email, what did they call it? The email too is email. Like that. So what we just need to do here is going to be user dot name like this. In front of it, user dot email like this, and at the same time in front of it, user dot id, and the id is what I want to use for the key. So this is going to be user then dot id. This one is just a sample for us to see what is coming back, but in the next class we're going to put everything in a proper UI. So save, and going back to the page, can you see? So for the first user, as you can see them, so it's going to be like a list, but now this thing is really going outside of the screen, so we're going to fix that one later on. But first, let me reload the page. You see that for the very brief, it's show loading, then after that it changed to the data, because then my network is actually fast right now for that API. But depending on the user, you see that the thing can display the loading, but we are going to make sure that that's not the loading we are showing. It's going to be something else. So, and the way we are going to do this thing is that this thing is going to be a link. Once you click on it, that's when it will now open the /user based on the ID. As you can see, each one of them have ID attached to them. So the ID 1, ID 2, 3, 4, and so forth like that, which they are 10. Yeah, they are 10 users. So once you click, it will now go to the post, and it will do the other stuff that needs to be there too, like that. So this is where I'll be stopping for today. But in the next class, we are going to work on this component properly. We are able to fetch the post, the users that we need, and it's only going to do this thing the first time the component load. So not that when the user change, or when loading change, or when error change, it will not call this API again. If you want it to call this API when something change, then you can pass the dependency here that, okay, when this particular stuff change, recall this or do this effect again. But we only want it to do it the first time the page load, and that's the reason why it's calling the API only once there. But it look like calling it twice there is because we are in dev mode. So your effect is only going to get called 2 times there. But once you deploy the application, you see that you're not going to see 2 API call here. The reason it's getting called 2 times is because of the React setup that we have here. So if you don't want to be seeing it, you can actually disable this strict mode. So in this strict mode, that is running your effects 2 times the first time there. But once this thing is disabled and we reload it, you see that it's not going to call our effect 2 times. It's only going to call it once. As you can see, it's getting called only once. But you should have that stuff there, because it's checking some stuff behind the scene, whether your application is going to work correctly or not, or is doing what it's supposed to do. So you should always leave this strict mode, but it's going to call your effect 2 times. And that's the reason why you see that you are going to see two API call here, because it run the effect 2 times. But once the application is deployed, it's only going to call it once. It will never call it 2 times there like that. So we have this effect which is fetching our data. So in the next class we're going to create a list like this, where we have this circle based on the name of the user, which is going to generate a color too. So we are going to have another component for user item. So we're going to call it user, or let's just call it user, and which is going to be each one of these boxes here. So each one of these boxes is going to be user, and that component will receive the name, the email there, and the ID. And based on that, you'll be able to click on it, and it will be able to route us to the post of the user based on the URL that we have there. So let me click on this home page. We're not going to have anything by this side. It's only the list of the user you are going to have. But once we click on one of them, it will do the routing later on, which is something I can actually put here. Instead of using P, I can actually use the link that is coming from the React route style DOM, because that's what we're going to use later on. It's going to be a link, and it's going to go to wherever the ID of the user. So it's coming from the React router like that, but I don't think we're going to be using it. We need to use nav or like that. So let's use the link for now. So yeah, now what do we need? We need to, so it's going to take us to where? It will take us to slash user, then slash the ID of the user. So user, then dot ID, then slash post. So any one of them you click on, it will always direct you to the correct route there. But for now, we just have this simple stuff. Yeah, so if I click on the first one, as you can see, it has directed us to the first user. So clicking on this, it directs us to the 7th user with that ID. Click on this, as you can see, it will always update the route. The same thing is what we are going to do for the post too. So once we click on any post, it will open the side one too, and we'll be able to see what that thing is holding here like that. So I will come with more UI later on, because I just picked some random color, but you can't be using random color like this. So I'm going to look into the colors we are going to be using later on, and we just make sure that our app is working like that. So that's going to be all for today. Thank you. Let me stop recording.